Hello! Are you a new fan of the Fallout franchise? Is Fallout 76 your first Fallout game? And you think it's the best Fallout game? Because all the other ones are old? Have you noticed a lot of people online constantly arguing about Fallout New Vegas or Fallout 3 or Fallout 4 even, and you don't understand why nobody can agree on what their favorite Fallout game is? In this short video, I'm going to break down the history of the Fallout franchise and why the fan base is so divided these days. To understand the history of Fallout, let's start at the beginning. The first Fallout game was developed in 1997, and it was heavily inspired and a spiritual successor to the Wasteland video game, which was published by Electronic Arts and basically completely abandoned at the time. It was a game developed in 1988, and it was set in a dystopian future in America after the nuclear holocaust. It was developed by Interplay Productions. The gameplay was originally designed to be based around the GURP system, or Generic Universal Role-Playing System. Unlike its more popular rival Dungeons & Dragons, GURPS focus more on point allocation and real-world measurements in opposition to Dungeons & Dragons dice rolls to decide gameplay. Fallout 1 was generally well received and naturally led to the development of Fallout 2. While still published under Interplay Productions, it was developed by Black Isle Studios, created mostly by the same team. Interplay had another winner on their hands. But as the franchise went on, they released games like Fallout Tactics and Fallout Brotherhood of Steel, which got slightly different reactions, and after the release of Fallout 2, Interplay had begun having a lot of financial difficulties. And in its desperation, it wound up selling the Fallout license to Bethesda Softworks. Interplay had already begun work on a new Fallout installment called Fallout Extreme, where they were going to try to bring the Fallout from an isometric RPG to more of a first-person action-oriented game. It's unclear if Bethesda used any of this at all. The idea of a first-person Fallout did seem to appeal to them when they developed Fallout 3 and released in 2008. It was well received as well at the time, but it did begin the rift that we see today in the franchise. Such a drastic overhaul to gameplay was bound to ruffle a few feathers with the older fans, but it also introduced an entire new generation to the Fallout franchise. With its console availability and new style of gameplay, it actually garnered a whole new audience, and people around my age, most of which started with Fallout 3. Also, if you've never played Fallout 1 or 2, and you're the kind of person that complains that Dark Souls is inaccessible, this game redefines inaccessible. It's so confusing, it's almost impossible. Like, every single time I would try to start a game in Fallout 1, I would get just destroyed by Rad Scorpion or Deathclaw as a random event at like level 1 with no combat capability at all. At the time, I think most people gave Bethesda a bit of a break though. You know, it's a new studio with the license. Everybody kind of cut them some slack, even though some people preferred the older games. But then Bethesda made a really interesting decision that really started the rift in the community. They went to Obsidian Entertainment, which was created by some of the former developers of Fallout, and told them, you have 2 years, here's the engine we created Fallout 3 in, here's our assets, make your own Fallout game, good luck. And that is the catalyst that created Fallout New Vegas. A lot of people had a lot of issues with Fallout New Vegas at launch, not because the gameplay was bad or anything. It was actually an improvement on Fallout 3 in almost every way. But technically, it was a little buggy, which is naturally to be expected when you give a studio 2 years to develop a game in an engine they've never used before. As the technical issues got hammered out, the community started to really fall in love with Fallout New Vegas and saw it as the peak of the Fallout franchise. Some who were fans of the older Fallout games began to say that this was proof that Bethesda was incapable of making a good Fallout game, and that the only way that Fallout would be able to survive as a franchise is if they relinquished it to Obsidian. This is an opinion that's pretty widely shared in the community to this day. It didn't help that in 2012, Bethesda sued Interplay Interactive for trying to develop a Fallout MMO called Fallout Online, or the V13 project. It's unclear why exactly Interplay thought that they would still be able to license a Fallout MMO when they sold the licensing to Bethesda, but they seemed to have an understanding that they could still use it as long as it was an online game. But Bethesda put a stop to that immediately. To be clear, at this point, most of the actual Fallout developers from 1 and 2 were part of Obsidian Entertainment now, not Interplay, and they were completely separate. And to be technical, Interplay is probably more responsible for the developers leaving to form Obsidian and ruining the Fallout franchise with the development of Fallout Brotherhood of Steel and Tactic. Then, after a long time, we finally got an update to the Fallout franchise. In 2015, Bethesda announced Fallout 4. And on top of that, it was going to release the year of the announcement. This was a crazy time. Many Bethesda YouTubers made their careers off of this moment, speculating about what Fallout 4 would be like. I'll never forget the week before Fallout 4's released. GameStop employees were leaking footage of gameplay on Twitch, where they had gotten copies from their stores and just started playing them on Twitch. And I remember Pete Hines had this Twitter flooded with people sending him links to streams of people spoiling the game. I remember one criticism that someone said in one of the live streams that Fallout 4 looked like a Skyrim mod. And I remember being really upset because I thought, this game looks great. Why is everybody crapping on it? And I felt that way when it came out. This game's great. Why doesn't anybody seem to feel the same way? To this day, there's just something about Fallout 4 that I keep going back to. It's something about Bethesda games. They're far from the most technically perfect games, but there's just a certain character to them that makes me just want to keep coming back for more. But after the launch of Fallout 4, a lot of people's opinions had been solidified. You either liked Fallout 4 or you liked Fallout New Vegas. That was it. You were split. And I would say that community was probably, 30% of Fallout fans. I feel like most of us enjoyed Fallout 4 and really gave it a chance, even if we knew there were some things about New Vegas that were objectively better. 3 years went by. Most of us were satisfied with Fallout 4 and its DLC afterwards, or all the mods that came out for New Vegas. But we always wanted more, no matter what side you were on. Some people wanted Obsidian to get their hands back on it again. Some people wanted Bethesda to come out with a new Fallout 5. And we finally got our answer in 2018, but it wasn't the one we expected. I remember watching the trailer for Fallout 76 and thinking, for the longest time, how cool it would be to have a Fallout in the place where I live. Place where I've always lived, where I grew up. The concept of a Fallout in a rural area in the Appalachian Mountains, it always appealed to me. But Fallout 76 was different. Most of the criticism of Bethesda's take on the franchise at this point is that they had taken away a lot of the classic RPG elements and made the game feel less like your choices mattered and that it was more of a linear adventure, which is fair. Fallout 3's story, you had very little choice. You had to side with the Brotherhood of Steel. And while Fallout 4 allowed you to make more choices in terms of your main story, it also streamlined the level up system, which had been the core of the Fallout franchise up until that point, and was the last straw for many of the Fallout purists. Now with Fallout 76, they added something that some of the community had been asking for, but others were very scared of. And that was multiplayer. When they announced Fallout 76, the initial reaction from a lot of people was, is this Rust? Is this Fallout Rust? Is this like Ark Survival Evolved, Conan Exiles, all these games that had already come out that had very similar concepts of surviving in a wasteland with other people that tried to kill you? And Bethesda's answer was, no, it's different. It's its own thing. You've never seen anything like this before. And unfortunately for Bethesda, they were right. We hadn't seen anything like Fallout 76's launch before, because it was a nightmare. Before launch, anybody who pre-ordered, like me, who really wanted a power armor helmet, were provided access to a technical test. It wasn't necessarily a beta, but allowed you to play some of the game. And it was rough. See, the thing about a technical test is it's mostly just to stress test the servers to make sure that they can handle the people that are coming into the game. And it could not, which led a lot of us to cancel our pre-orders. At the time, everybody wanted to know what Fallout 76 was supposed to be, but Bethesda kept dancing around the issue. They didn't really answer a lot of the questions, and when they did, most of their answers turned out to be lies in the end. I remember at the time, Battle Royale was all the craze, with PUBG and Fortnite and Apex really kicking off. So when they announced it, they said, no, this isn't a Fallout Battle Royale game, which they wound up adding to Fallout 76 a couple years later. Also, in any game where you can have PvP, a lot of people get concerned about microtransactions. What's stopping people who have more money from just buying all the good gear and killing everybody else? And Bethesda reassured us with all of the microtransactions that you can purchase in Fallout 76 will only be cosmetic, which was a lie. Then, naturally, everybody wanted to be able to play solo, because Fallout has always been a single-player experience, where you get to experience this vast world on your own. Maybe occasionally find a companion to accompany you on your journey. But Fallout 76 did a twofer. There were no companions. Not unless you had real friends, because there were no NPCs. All of the interactions were supposed to be with players. And as anybody who's played Grand Theft Auto Online and turned on the free roam chat knows, people who play online games are always the nicest people. But let's say you just want to wander around a hollow, empty wasteland with no NPCs and no friends and just experience all the terminal entries to your heart's content, right? Well, the problem is if you didn't want to interact with other people, you couldn't play offline. You had to connect to a server. Well, what about private servers? Lots of games like Conan Exiles let you play locally and then turn on co-op online if you want to. And Bethesda said that they were going to provide us with that. So we waited and waited, and then Bethesda announced Fallout First. If you want private servers, you gotta pay for it. Which, I mean, is kind of reasonable. Servers aren't cheap, but you can use your system, your PC, as a local server. Guess they couldn't figure out how to implement that. So as it stands right now, Microsoft owns Bethesda and they own Obsidian, which is Respawn the desire for people to get a Fallout New Vegas 2, which isn't necessarily a direct sequel to Fallout New Vegas is what people want. People just want Obsidian Entertainment to get their hands on the franchise again. And while some of us have given Bethesda the benefit of a doubt for a long time, we can't help but admit that they've kind of lost their way. A little bit like Interplay. And listen, if you like Fallout 76, good. I'm happy that you like. But the Fallout community, any of us that aren't angry 15-year-olds. We don't hate you for liking Fallout 76. We just think that you deserve better. Because we've seen what Fallout can be. We've seen what Fallout should be. We're not trying to set the whole Fallout world on fire. We just want to start a flame in your hearts. Thanks for watching.